Hello, and thanks for joining us on the podcast that discusses all things gaming. Coming to you from the home of Gen Con and the gaming capital of the world, this is The Established Facts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Established Facts. This is episode 84, and I am joined with three other friends and podcasters, so I will go ahead and start to my right with our introductions.
This is Josh, and that was the most awkward way to introduce some other friends and podcasters.
You know us other people. Hey, guys, this is Derek.
This is Prime.
Let alone the other people being the most frequent people on the podcast since the beginning.
Sure.
But
Well, I don't want to get anybody confused that maybe I, branched out and started making millions and millions of dollars doing podcasting on my own or anything. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And this is your host, Big Don.
I'd be happy with 6 digits. I don't need millions.
I think you'd probably be happy with a high 5.
Digits?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll keep my 20 digits. And,
I have 5.
fingers and toes.
Yes.
Fingers and toes. Come on now, Derek.
I'm totally doing this whole visual thing, and which is totally working for an audio podcast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of that, when was the last time we had Derek on? I don't know,
like
4
months.
episodes ago?
Something like
I
that.
don't know.
Right after Fear the Con.
Gen Con. We did have Gen Con.
I think Gen Con was the last one.
Speaking of that, you said you had some stuff for the last con you went to. Some
for
interviews.
reality, yes.
Yeah, and I didn't ever hear back from you on that one.
Yeah, the whole, September was a thing, and then...
and then October came and went.
And October was a thing, and then I got sick, and
Oh.
as you guys can probably tell from, my awesome voice right now.
Phenomenal.
But yeah, no, I have them recorded. I just need to edit them and all that. One of them, which is probably going to just be a long Mario jump. So,
oh no. But we know the guys that kick to the dice bag, so I'll just pass it off to them and make your work a lot easier.
True, that may actually not be a bad idea.
They did actually have an episode in the last,
It's true. Keith would be appreciative of that. Oh, you recorded an episode for us? Thanks.
I thought Keith was gone.
No.
Adam stepped away.
Oh,
Come on, this is June. Not that
right. So the September thing happened.
September, yeah, that was a month of. Wait, we didn't record anything?
That's why we had so much material, though, from
Gen Con,
all the cons that we'd gone to. And
speaking of that, we swear that we're not a con podcast.
Yeah, right?
No, but we just like going to them and talking to other gamers
We had a lot of cons this year in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
We probably will have a lot next year, too.
Yeah.
We'll have more next year.
Yeah, we will.
Which is a conversation that will continue to come up as this year gets closer, I'm sure.
My concern is con overload.
Well, and some cons are leaving because of it.
Yeah.
My concern is lack of money.
Boom.
That's the digit conversation from earlier.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
So, Don, what are we doing?
Episode 84, we have quite a few friends that are involved in developing and designing and producing independent games. Obviously, Derek has done that, and we have several other friends that are in the process of doing that or have done that successfully. And so we wanted to have a discussion just on the consumer's side of indie gaming. So for our versus topic, we're going to do Kickstarter backer versus first-run buyer. And what I mean by that is, are you more apt to investing money before the game is produced, hoping that what you get a chance to invest in and use to sponsor that game helps produce that game, and then thus, obviously with most of the rewards gaining one of those games, like Jasco Games with their Mega Man board game.
I can't come any sooner.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And then we have friends that we're actually going to be talking about a little bit, and we're going to do a plug later on. But Silver Crescent Publishing, they've got a Kickstarter out right now, and so are you more apt to putting the money up front before the game is ever developed to kind of help push that along, or are you one of those guys that kind of sits and wait because you know that the Kickstarter's been successful and you're anticipating showing up early to a con or to your friendly local game store and buying the first run copy of that game? So let's go ahead and start with Prime.
Considering the fact that I have no real experience, by real experience I mean no experience whatsoever in supporting Kickstarters, I'm gonna have to say, just by default, buying one outright from a store is what I'd rather do.
Derek?
My opinion on this has changed. Currently,
last 5 minutes? Or?
No,
Okay.
no, recently. I would say that going forward, I would be a first-time buyer.
For the most part, for me, the success of crowdfunding games I have had in the games I have supported that have funded, all have delivered. I have no reason to believe that that's not going to go forward. So I'm going to be a Kickstarter person as of right now, as long as we have the money and my wife says it's okay.
Right.
Wouldn't that be the case?
As long as you go through the proper procedural documents and get approval where approval
Everything has to be in triplicate.
Or it's in the budget. Yeah,
all the red tape has been taken care of.
Yes.
For, right.
I'm not. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm single.
Right. I am definitely a first run buyer. I love the idea of Kickstarter, and there have been several projects that I have supported by word of mouth and referral and blowing up Facebook as often as I can. But in general, due to whatever funding issues or something like that when one comes up, or just the surprise that there is a new one, I tend to like to be the guy who is first in the store, and I will get all the information I can off the Kickstarter for like launch dates and stuff like that, so that I can be there to support that game when it comes out. So, so Derek, you made a very interesting comment, and your answer surprised me a little bit, knowing that you've kind of gone through this with everything and with Universal Storytelling System and things like that. So, why has your opinion changed recently?
The biggest reason would be the Artesian Dice Kickstarter. About 2 years ago, I supported them, and they have not delivered. And
Ever?
Oh wow!
They've piecemealed it out to supporters, and I still don't have my dice.
Those are expensive dice.
They are. It was expensive. I spent quite a bit of money on it, and I talked to them at Gen Con, and it's like they're on all these separate projects, but they're not really taking care of their backers, in my opinion. So there was that, and then there is just... I guess Kickstarter in general, I've just gone sour on it. There are a bunch of high-name companies that are using it. There are some companies that are using it that they just don't understand how it's used. So their prices are pretty big and too expensive. And I just would like to learn about these products and then purchase them when they're really out there. I'd like a nice... there's drive-through RPG and stuff like that, but I'd like a nice storefront where you would be able to go and purchase all these independent games, these Kickstarted games, and learn about them. Just a central storefront for that, and then I would support that. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm sticking my foot in the sand, saying, you know what, I'm not going to kickstart my next projects and stuff like that.
Okay. Josh?
I understand the comment about some big companies trying to utilize Kickstarter. The thing is that if I see those, I tend to discard them, because if I know it's a big company that's utilizing it, I'm not going to Kickstarter for that purpose. Some of the guys that I've seen really, really be successful with Kickstarter, the Frog God Games guys. That is their entire, that we're going to produce a new product, but in order to get this new product produced, we need investment. And they're not getting external investment from bigger name publishers. So they're using Kickstarter we want to put this book out, we're going to utilize the funds that we raised from Kickstarter to produce the book, and then we're going to make a certain run and sell it after Kickstarter. Once the Kickstarter's done, they're sending it out. Your independent developers that are utilizing Kickstarter properly and are being successful have all delivered for me, which is why I say I know that some have not delivered for others. And I also know that some, including yours, Derek, have not reached their funding. And in my opinion, the biggest fault behind that is a combination of word of mouth just doesn't work in all cases, and Kickstarter doesn't have a great set of promotion tools.
Agreed.
It is they're putting all the reliance on the backer, which the whole reason, or not the backer, but the developer, whatever. The whole reason the developer is utilizing Kickstarter most of the times because they don't have the funds to market it.
Exactly.
So they're trying to get the money so that they can market it. But it needs to be marketed so they can get the money. So
they don't have the funds to market it, and they probably don't have the funds to promote it either, which is part of the problem.
Right.
So
that's kind of where I understand that some people are not haven't been as successful at Kickstarter. But for me, one of the coolest processes have been watching the development process of a game. So far, I've utilized Kickstarter for the majority of them games and a couple of CDs, a couple of audio CDs for independent artists or whatever. And the biggest one that comes to mind right now was up until probably last year, was the first and biggest funded video game, the Pathfinder Online game. And their timetable right from the beginning was, we want to enter alpha by 2014, we'd like to enter beta by 2015, and we want to enter full play by 2016. So anyone that's griping that they're taking too long, they've been very open about it. But going through that and getting the updates, the bi-weekly updates they put out, getting into the alpha early because you know somebody at Fear the Boot, even though I already had an early enrollment access, has been really cool. And not without Kickstarter, those early enrollment, you can go and get early enrollment right now if you want to, but it's a couple $100 or more to jump into early enrollment, whereas I paid $100 in the Kickstarter and already had early enrollment access. So I haven't put a lot of work into it, but watching that development feed come through has shown Kickstarter, you're not going to get that with the first run. You're only going to get what they post to the public. You won't get the private, okay, look, this is the truth. We got delayed, our servers are screwed up. And for me, I think that's fascinating. They're delayed 2 weeks because their servers are screwed up. You're not going to tell the public face that. But I think that's cool to be a part of that development process.
I agree. And Realmworks is a good example of Kickstarter done well. And I really enjoyed seeing the interface change throughout time. But it's like when you were talking about word of mouth and that sort of thing, part of that is your rewards.
Yeah.
And it seems like to be successful, you have to partner with companies, more well-known companies, to get additional things that are not technically aligned with your game. For instance, you would partner with Reaper to get additional minis, or you'd partner with somebody else. And it's really difficult, and it's sad. Because one of our friends at Silver Crescent, their first go around with this revamp of their book didn't make it. I would probably go with Indiegogo because you at least get some of the money. So maybe you're now a little bit further along the way.
Indiegogo's another, for those who aren't aware, another crowdfunding option. But the thing that makes them kind of stand out a little bit from Kickstarter is that if you commit to back something, the developer's going to get the money. Now, they're still held by a contract that if they don't deliver, they are to return the money. It's still part of the contract. But if a project does not meet funding, the people who've started the project will at least get something to maybe repackage and go back through. However, there's a lot of there's other back-end stuff that's going on there. Indiegogo's good for, I've seen big projects get done that way, I've seen smaller projects get done that way. A big advantage to Kickstarter is they've handed all the financial part off to Amazon. And Amazon is, obviously world known, and they're handling all of the back-end. They're taking out their fee, they're taking out the Kickstarter fee, they're getting it deposited into your account, making sure everybody's been properly charged and notified that the charge has happened. You take that out, which is that's an expense for an up-and-coming company.
Agreed.
I don't know how it works in Indiegogo. I didn't go that far. I know we did a project utilizing, was it Indiegogo or we used somebody else?
No, we used somebody else.
GoFundMe, that was it. They're the same time. No, you know what? I take that back. Indiegogo does charge. I don't necessarily know if they get the money. GoFundMe, on the other hand, does get the money.
They do.
Because Indiegogo will charge you right off the bat. I just don't know for sure if it gets to the...
GoFundMe is more for like charitable thing, or if you're trying to get like something for a big project or something like that. But
which, by the way, another way to do that is PayPal gift process. PayPal's gifting doesn't charge.
There we go.
So
I'm thinking about something different this year going forward for the for the charity. Mm-hmm. Maybe use the system that they use for the podcast charity event thing.
Okay. So, Razzle or something? No.
Razoo.
Yeah.
Razoo.
So.
Yeah.
Brian? What is your perspective on why do you like to be the first guy in the store to buy stuff versus trying to like pool your funds and then back something on Kickstarter?
Well, I don't know much about Kickstarter in general. So you're saying though that if a Kickstarter starts and for whatever reason they can't get the funding in order to produce it, the individuals get their money back from...
The individuals never lose their money. It never even gets taken.
Okay.
It's more of like your sponsorship is held in like this financial limbo until you meet your first goal. Once you have met your first goal, then all of the funds that have been collected to do so are then processed.
No. They're processed. Everything's processed at the end of the
That's
campaign.
what I was saying. After everything has been... After your time limit...
After everything. Time limit, yes.
Right. After
not
your
goal
time limit. That's what I was saying. Once you have met your first goal, after your time limit has finished, all of that money is processed.
Yes. Right.
If you meet stretch goals, which are secondary, tertiary goals that you set, a lot of times with larger rewards for some of the people who help you get to those stretch goals, then it's all processed at the same time, but it's kind of like, okay, well, you've hit this benchmark, now try and see if you can get this benchmark. And a lot of times it's usually simply to pay for all the extra crap that they give you.
Okay, well, my big thing is that instant gratification. Once you pay for a product, you have it right there in your hands. You don't have to wait 6 months, a year, or however long it takes for a product to maybe or maybe not be developed. So
I can totally understand that.
And in your case, when you had to deal with what was the dice company?
Artesian.
When you had to deal with the Artesian dice, like in that particular instance, you're not even guaranteed to be satisfied with the product that you're putting money towards.
Yeah.
The way that they describe it, Kickstarter describes it, is you are a patron of the arts.
Right.
Okay.
This is not a pre-order system. It's a...
Right. It's a sponsorship.
Yes.
It's a sponsorship. It's not... your reward for sponsoring it is a copy of this game.
But the existential reward is that it gets created.
Correct. Right. Exactly. And a lot of the... If you look at a lot of the... Like, for example, if you have a board game and in order for you to actually produce it for one customer, it costs you $30. And so you can set lower goals and then it'd be like, hey, in the instruction book we put a recognition for your sponsorship, or hey, we'll send you a T-shirt, or we'll send you some stickers or temporary tattoo or whatever. Get a special recognition on our website or something. So there are still rewards that are included in that, but they're going to be minute compared to like the goal is if you spend $30 on Kickstarter, it's going to help. Not only help us reach that goal to publish that game, but you're going to get a copy of the published game because that's pretty much the MSRP once it comes out.
And my thing is, my thing is though that you know what you're buying. If you buy it from the store, you know what you're buying before you buy it.
I mean, if you're the consumer, it's under your responsibility to know what you're buying when you buy it.
Or you can look at the back of the box and go, okay, well, this is interesting.
Right.
Exactly. Versus looking at a Kickstarter and not being sure whether things are going to change in the middle of the Kickstarter as far as whether rules or concept of the game or whatever ends up being.
And that's kind of where my viewpoint comes from. It's more along the lines of, I enjoy going to, and I know we already said we're not a con podcast, but I enjoy going to like Gen Con and other cons like that to test out new people's prototype games, because if I already know that they have a prototype, that means they have an understanding of what it's going to cost when this game comes out. Now, the hard thing that you run into is, if you're not going through Kickstarter, a lot of times I've seen newer game developers that do a lot of they do self-publishing by saying, like, if you get on our website, you can pay for a copy of the game and then just print it off at your house. It works a lot like the Weird West role-playing game that came out a couple years ago. That was it. And it's like, you pay whatever it was, $1.
It's a print on demand.
Yeah, print on demand. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah, White Wolf has gone to print on demand.
Yep.
For all of their resources. And so, yes. So you can get online and you can say, oh, I really want this supplemental guide. It's going to cost me $30. You pay $30. You have it instantly for the download. They usually email it to you or send you a link so you can download it. And then you just print it off. Or you have the PDF copy on your computer. But I really enjoy the interaction with the developers. We have a couple friends that are in the process of developing board games, and it's really fun to be able to sit down and pick the brain of somebody who's designing this board game, and then to ask them questions like, well, have you thought about this for your board game, or have you thought about that? And normally the answers are, well, yeah, sure, I've already taken care of all that. What's that? I don't see what
he has a whiteboard over here with all the things. Derek is developing the Siege game, and he's
right. Yeah, absolutely.
And my whiteboard right now has
all of those questions. Right? Yeah, absolutely. And that's the really cool thing about. I think for me, I would rather see it in a store, but have the relationship with the person who designed it, so that you can support them. Like, dude, I cannot wait until you publish your game because I am going to buy it from you. I will take it out of your hands. You know what I mean? Like that's what I think is
that's
really
the reason
cool.
why I do what I do is to give you that opportunity.
Right.
And now I'm gonna step in another side. Okay.
No, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
Whatever. Tracy Hickman, Sojourner Tales.
Right.
First introduced at Gen Con at their table, this is the board game we want to do. And in 2 weeks, we're going to launch the Kickstarter. You launch the Kickstarter, and then the gratification, I got handed the first copy handed out at Gen Con by Tracy Hickman. Right. Autographed and played on this podcast.
Right. But
because I backed it.
Well, okay, there's that. But I mean, like, what... That's a 1 in, 1 million. That does not happen.
Yeah,
I have picked up the majority of my Kickstarter pickups at Gen Con.
Right. But what he's saying is the opportunity to be able to have your game handed to you by the developer, especially Tracy Hickman. I mean, he's a friend of the show's, and
I love saying that. I love hearing that.
Having your game handed to you.
And then run by that person.
And then signed.
I know that was a lucky advantage. I know the getting him to run the game was a lucky advantage.
My point is, it would be the exact same feeling as if Tracy Hickman showed up at Gen Con with the game that he had never kickstarted and saying, I am back funding the game that I spent my own money to produce, and having the exact same experience. And that's kind of where we're coming from. Is it's nice to I'm not saying either way is the wrong answer. Both ways are the right answer.
Yeah.
The difference is one of them is helping them get to that point of launch. The other one is supporting the fact that they have launched.
True. No, and
that's really where the
both are
difference
important
lies.
there.
Yeah.
LM Studios. I probably should have, since I have a tablet, look up the Super Alpha Bitcrawl FX Extreme thing, whatever the heck the name of that game is.
That's a fun little game.
It's really good. They took the approach and released Bitcrawl Pocket first at conventions to get people interested in it, and said, we're going to put this game out, but we need Kickstarter to get it produced.
Yeah.
Like they've made copies for themselves, printed it out, whatever, and they went to the local conventions and allowed people to test it out and say, we're going to launch Kickstarter on this day, which they launched it at Gen Con and were successfully funded.
Good.
But they spent that entire summer with this prototype game, playing with people,
Right.
showing people
And that
what
is
was going
how
on.
to do it.
Yes.
It's absolutely, and that's really the biggest. Like, I think that those guys, and something that in general, people who are trying to use Kickstarter, that is the key, and that really kind of gets into our discussion. Is like what is important about trying to support indie? Like, what do indie developers need in order to make their game successful? And it really comes down-
Conventions that are reasonable for indie developers.
Right, and that's exactly it. It really comes down to, you can trust someone's word of mouth for the most part,
Right.
that it's going to get said to someone. But the difference is, and it's just like the phrase, don't trust anyone else to do the work for you. If you want your game to be successful, you have got to put your feet on the pavement, and you've got to show your game to people. It's the same thing that beer companies do when they're bringing out a new beer. It's the same thing that Pepsi does when they're bringing out a new flavor. They bring out trial versions for people to check out and review, and if it's successful, right then and there.
Well, but the thing is, we talk about funding. Indie people like myself are basically doing this out of our homes.
Right.
And I've been fortunate with my job that I've had the means to go to certain places to show my game.
Right.
And these conventions keep raising their prices for tables and booths and that sort of thing.
You do understand why, though, right?
Yeah, because they have more people coming so that they can do that.
It's standard supply and demand.
It is, but the problem...
It's annoying, don't get me wrong, but when you have more people that want to come than you have space available, they can increase the premium.
I understand that, but then you get into you're now edging out the indie people
Yes.
for the...
And that's the biggest
Which is
problem.
why it sucks.
I mean,
you asked what's
yeah.
needed for the indie
Yeah,
people.
you're right.
And let you
Even
know.
Entrepreneurs Avenue at Gen Con is expensive.
Yeah,
and as you experienced this last year, it's sold out in like 0 time.
I've been checking every week. They have not released these tables for next year at Gen Con.
Yeah.
I've pretty much given up on that, and I went and talked with Origins, pretty much given up on that. So it's like I'm going to go to all the Indiana.
Yeah, I mean that's it, like
Become friends with every game store around here.
Well, like Indie PopCon, we went to Indie PopCon. We had a booth there, and there were probably 10 or 12.
We will have a booth
game.
at PopCon this year.
Yeah, you can just show your game there, and
Well, I think the established facts. We'll buy 2 tables next to each
Yeah.
other, and it will be our area, and
they buy
you will
3.
get at least 1. Yeah, 3.
we'll see.
Now, speaking of Kickstarter,
Well, we got friends, so
That's true.
speaking of Kickstarter, I am backing the convention specifically because it's cheaper to back the vendor
right.
area
Yeah.
through Kickstarter than it would be to go to there. It's a convention in New York City, so
Oh my.
yeah.
Okay.
So you're on your tablet.
I am. I had to make sure I said it correctly. LM Studios' most recently kickstarted game, which should be shipping to backers by the end of the year, is Super Turbo Bitcrawl FX Alpha Extreme.
Yeah.
I really
Version 1.
Version
No, I'm
1.
just kidding.
Part of me wishes there was a shorter way to say that, which is why you often hear me say Super Turbo Bitcrawl or Bitcrawl Alpha Extreme or whatever the heck it is. Just as long as they insert words,
right.
people are like, "What?" I got to give these guys a lot of credit. They did a lot of work over the summer, as we mentioned. They gave people the opportunity to demo it. I'm really hoping they get through the process of grabbing my hand so I don't hit my watch on the table again. Anyways, and I hope they successfully release this game even more. They may have been successfully funded, but now comes the long road of, okay, we've got a board game. How do we sell it? And who's going to buy it?
Well, and that's, I mean,
I'll buy it.
Right.
I'm going to say, in my opinion, that is probably the more challenging. I mean, yes, getting it promoted, getting it launched. There are ways for you to independently, put out prototypes and produce your own game, and it may not be necessarily the greatest quality at first, but hopefully by the time that you have that money, you find those developers to be able to help you with that. I mean, Jason from Jasco Games, he had to go through that when he picked up the label.
Yeah.
When he picked up UFS.
He didn't.
Well, he went through a lot of creative development.
Yeah,
when it came
there
to
was
redesigning the cards and things like that. And so that's a growing pain, but that's a nice growing pain because it's like, well, obviously, if you have the money to be able to start looking for that, your game is becoming successful. The problem comes when you are successful in producing the first run, and this is probably the biggest issue that I have, because we played a game a few weeks ago called The Captain is Dead, and it was a phenomenal game. So much fun, and I'm going to buy it as soon as I see it anywhere. I will, sell a kidney, but the problem that I have is, you have a limited run to only people who kickstart your game, and you don't supply enough resources there in the back end to push out your own production to kind of balance that. Because we were talking to Josh, the guy who was showing us the game, and he said, yeah, this is a Kickstarter game. They sent it to me. He emailed them. He said, hey, I'm going to be at this little bitty, get-together with friends. I would love to be able to show people your game if you can get me the copy within a couple of days. And literally, he had it within 2 days. To be able to bring, they had just produced the first run copies. They sent it to him. He got it within 2 days. We played it. Phenomenal game. He goes, yeah, but the problem is it's only available on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I've been to the site. They've got the site up, which it looks like they're kind of a print-on-demand shop. The Game Crafter, I think is what it's called.
Yeah,
which is what that looks like.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about them in a minute.
Yeah.
They don't currently have it for sale on there, but it sounds like that's going to be the way they go.
Right.
Where we have the game, and here's what's needed, but which means you're going to see an increased cost, but it'll be made when the order's placed.
Yeah, and I'm not going the print on demand on my board game. So.
Right. And I feel like that almost hurts the business more than it helps it, because so many times, being a gamer, have I seen a new game come out. It doesn't matter what game it is. It can be a new set for Magic. It can be a WizKids click game. It can be anything like that. Have I seen a new game come out, and it has boomed like crazy and sells out of every store, and then all of a sudden you get into the same thing you always get into when a new game that's hot comes out, and people can't get a hold of it. And then the developer is trying to get things printed off, but the people who are putting all the pieces together haven't gotten them all printed off yet, and then finally 2 months later when they start releasing the game, that spike in popularity has gone down severely because people want new product now. Unfortunately, we are in... Exactly. It's all about the money. And unfortunately, what happens is you have this enthusiasm that builds, this buzz that builds with the public, and then you can't supply their demand, and then they find, because we are America and we are ADD about everything, they find the next new thing before you ever get the old new thing out for them to buy. And that's the problem I have. I don't want to see games like The Captain is Dead and other games that are a lot of fun to play and really cool. 2 months later, down the road, people are like, what game is that? And it
second problem
dies. There's
actually second and third problem. Going to resellers, stuff like Southwest,
the distributors.
Distributors, thank you. Will not purchase them.
Right.
Yeah. After a certain time, they won't.
So then it peters out, yeah.
And then game stores want to deal with distributors because they get it for less than cost.
Right, because it's wholesale.
Yes.
Yep.
So, and game stores are very risk adverse.
Yeah, because they already have to sell their most of them already have to sell their product at list. They can't in order to make any type of profit, and that's the as we've had multiple discussions about game stores. Whenever you have to sell something at list, you're not going to attract people in terms of your product, buying product. You're going to attract people for everything else that's going on at the store.
Right.
And thus they'll buy product.
Right,
And
peripherals.
yes.
Yeah. When you buy a computer at Best Buy, it's usually priced at the lowest they can be priced. It's the printer and the scanner and the screen and the mouse.
Where Best Buy makes money.
Right.
But a game store doesn't have as many peripherals to make money on.
Exactly. Especially if the game is
itself.
like, you buy the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game and it has all the dice you need in it.
Right.
So you don't have to go and buy more dice from ChessX or Crystal Cast or someone like that because you've got all the peripherals you need in that one box.
True.
But there's also, like, game stores that's why they don't stock as many, like, role-playing games.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you buy one Pathfinder book
Yeah,
and you're good.
you're good for your group, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It slows a role-playing game down like crazy.
Well,
but,
sure.
It's essentially that's it. Especially if you know the system, like if the four of us were to sit down in a game store to play Pathfinder, we own Hero Lab and every book that we need to be able to be successful. We don't have to buy a bunch of stuff.
Or
But I
every
think-
book in Josh's case.
Right. Well, in the same respect, too, and this is on a side note, I think that's why we are, and I would encourage any role-playing group to do this, find something you can invest in that game store because you want to support them.
Mm-hmm.
They're letting you sit in their store for 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 6, 12 hours to play a game that you're not having to buy from them.
Right.
So buy concessions. You know what I mean? Or find another game that you like if you're a Magic player, or if you're a if you're a
Well,
card player in
Magic's easy,
general, or-
especially on Friday Night Magic, because
Right,
I buy
right.
sleeves.
Well,
and,
I'm just saying, like, if you're like, I'm a role player, but I love to play Magic. I know that if I go to our friends at White Flag Games and I sit down and I play a 4-hour role playing game, before I leave that store, I'm going to spend money in their store
Oh, yeah, totally.
because I want to keep them. I want to keep their lights on because that's where I like to play, and
Yeah.
the people there are awesome.
If I buy UFS, I buy it, if they can get it. Because
Right.
there's certain things that they
Right.
can't get, but
Right.
I'll buy it from them.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a so everything you just explained is it's a problem with capitalism. As odd as this is going to sound.
Absolutely.
Apple just sold over 10 plus million iPhones, and I still can't go to a Sprint store and buy a 64 gig iPhone 6.
That's right, you can. Because they're trash. No,
Well,
I'm just saying.
It's not for me, obviously.
I know.
Well,
But-
as long as it comes with an OtterBox, you're fine.
But you go through, you think about that. They sold 10 plus million iPhones, and they still don't have enough of them in stock for somewhere else.
10 plus million OtterBoxes.
Shrink that down
That's why
to
they're
a
in
print
business.
run of 500 games,
Yeah.
and they're gone, and they can't get any more made. Heck, King of New York.
I was about to say, you mean like
Oh
King of
my
New York?
God.
I've had
Gosh.
King of New York pre-ordered for probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks now. A lot of people have had it longer than that, and apparently it's sitting on a dock out in California.
Yeah,
Because
I'm
they
ready
don't
to
have
drive
enough
out to
work.
California
Right.
and get us a copy off of that dock. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, because they apparently don't have enough workers to get it off the boat,
Yeah.
to get it unloaded so it can be distributed to the distributors.
Yeah.
And the distributors have been ordered not to give it to the game stores until all the distributors have their copies.
And the biggest problem with that, it's a huge catch-22 because the game developers will go to a company outside of the country because it's cost-effective,
Exactly.
and then they have issues with shipping it, which means people get upset because they can't get the game that they already bought.
Because they were trying
the
to get a
problem
game
is-
3 months ago and they haven't gotten
but
it
the
yet.
problem,
Yeah.
but the problem is the way that we work is, if it's American made, I can charge 300% more than what it would because it says made in America on the side, and that's not how it should be. But that's exactly how a capitalist
My books-
problem works.
200 books cost me $500.
Yeah,
wow.
and that's crazy.
That's insane to print.
Yeah,
And so what do you do? I mean, that's basically my available funds.
right.
Now, let's say that hit. Let's say that, for instance, for some reason I went to California and it was a huge success. Everybody was buying copies. I saw my last copy. I'm like, I'm sorry I did not have like another $500 at the start of this.
Right, exactly. Because now you have to play the catch-up game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's,
It's frustrating being a business owner, and I'm going to preface everything that I just commented about capitalism. That I'm still very pro-capitalism and everything about it.
yeah,
Yes, comrade.
But it's the
We gotta
inherent
fuel
flaw.
the man somehow.
I know. It's an inherent flaw with trying to produce something because you have to find that fine line. And being a game developer, especially independent developers, have got to have the toughest time doing it.
Yeah.
Even big publishers who can get their games out there for people to be interested, they could produce a ton, and if no one likes it,
well,
they're
that's
screwed.
that's honest to goodness, that's the tipping point right there. That's the balance point. It's like if you're an independent developer, you have to develop enough because you anticipate that your game is going to be good. But if it's not good and you don't sell anything, you're out whatever that money is. If it is good and you sell them all, now you have to play the catch-up game. My problem is, and I don't think there's any excuse in the world, when a company like Hasbro or WizKids has a game that goes crazy nuts and they sell out of it, and then they're like, oh, well, there's a 2-month delay because we can't get this.
Oh,
No, you have no excuse. You own Wizards of the Coast, and there is no excuse for you to run out of boxes of the newest Magic set. Or you own Marvel Dice Masters. There's no reason why.
Certainly not.
There's no reason why. If you think that this game, okay, I understand it was the mechanics were based on a game that didn't do well, but anything right now that has a Marvel logo on it
is going to sell. Yeah.
It's gonna settle.
Marvel, My Little Pony.
Yep.
I'm just saying, dude. I'm just saying.
Marvel bumper stickers.
Right. Pinkie Pie in an Iron Man outfit. I'm buying it. I'm buying it.
I'd buy it.
I'm just saying.
That's now going to happen.
Just saying. Oh my goodness.
There is a...
My Little
Avengers
Pony
assemble because
expansion.
friendship is magic.
Oh my god! If someone's not doing this now, they're wrong.
Somebody better be taking notes right now. But
There is Copyright Established Facts 2014.
that's right. How you like that?
Suck it, Disney. There is an alternative that has happened, and we're going to bring the kind of discussion over to here.
Yeah, go for it.
So I went to For Reality, and a couple
went to
weeks
what?
For Reality.
For reality.
Yes, it is a fur con, and
Which, for those of you who don't know what a furcon is,
it's basically anthropomorphic animals.
Right.
People dress up in
people
them.
who like to dress up like Care Bears and stuff.
Yeah,
like
essentially, yes. Yes, in the $1,000, I kid you not,
Yeah.
Care Bear
that.
costume.
Yeah, absolutely. They put as much work in their cosplay as any other cosplay. It's
not
just a
more.
different theme.
Yeah.
If not more.
Yeah, if not more.
Because I could buy a pair of pants and call myself cosplayer.
Yeah, that's true.
And I will tell you right now, my $700 wolf head that is actually being developed right now.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes. Has like a computer fan in the mouth, so
nice. So you can keep circulating there. Yeah, I can imagine that would be extremely hot.
But anyways,
Hydration.
Yeah. Camel, one of those camel bags.
Oh yeah, that was smart. But so For Reality, their unique take on this on a convention is that they had a convention long game. So it was furs against a machine trying to take over the world.
Sweet.
So they created their own board game, and they only sold it at the convention.
Okay.
So there they knew exactly how many that they needed.
Right.
And they could limit the run on that. But it's a neat concept for a convention. It wasn't as successful. I mean, what I found out was that this was the first real For Reality. It's by a very big fur comic creator.
Okay.
So hopefully next year they'll improve on it a little bit. Like the rules weren't that clear.
Okay.
But
do some redrafting and
yeah.
So it was a fairly successful turnout, though?
Oh yeah, it was really successful. The hotel was great. But that was another way of putting out a board game, and I would hope that more conventions would embrace the idea of like a convention long, not necessarily just a theme. Like Gen Con has a quote unquote theme that they really don't do.
Right? Yeah,
it's called Paizo Takes Over the World.
They have got They have I'm just saying, like they have got some of the coolest themes, like Level Up and like
The
just-
vampire
just
one. That
don't-
And they got the
no
some
game
zombie,
left
like a
behind
zombie
and stuff
game.
like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean,
They don't do
problem
anything
is
with it.
They don't, and they really should, because that is a really. I mean, that is a fun. That's a fun. I mean, I look forward every year to seeing what their new big promotion.
If they
thing
did
is.
something like this
Yeah.
every year, like they would sell out of like these games because
Well,
it would be
No,
really
don't
cool.
do that because then someone will say that it should have just been in the bag. Then we don't get it anymore.
Oh, you mean the non-swag bag?
Yeah, right.
Did
Well,
see
but
that?
you know what?
This
though?
year was higher
If
quality
you were,
bag.
if you were, yeah, well,
It was. I will give it that.
That's
it's
true.
It was an actual bag. It was like a real cloth bag. What would be cool though is like, you know, and this is kind of going to back to the idea of promoting and things like that for your game is if you were to do something like that, like go to the Gen
going
Con,
right where
go
I'm
to the
going with
Gen
that.
Con booth and pick up your discounted copy of the Gen Con board game. Who's not going to do that? I mean, it's you can not do that. You
Well,
don't
no.
kickstart it. No, I'm just
That's
kidding.
right. I paid for it.
That's right. But no, I mean, like honestly, people. I've had it for probably 5 to 7 years, but I spent $15 each for my wife and I's Gen Con badge holder. I mean, it's just a pocket that you put your plastic badge
Well,
in.
where I thought you were going with that
But-
would be to hire an independent developer
That would
every
be
year,
awesome. Yeah,
and then showcase, not have
like a
them.
premier game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they
Yes.
won't produce enough. Watch. They won't produce enough, and you'll run into the same problem we ran into with King of New York this year, where they only had 50 copies per day available,
But here's the
and then
thing.
people are going to be upset
Here's
about
the
it.
difference, though. If you have a premier game, you promote on your Gen Con website this year's sponsored premier game. Only 50 copies a day. Make sure you're the first in line, kind of thing.
I wouldn't do that. What I would
I'm
do
just saying, like that
is
would.
like let's just take Gen Con for an example because it's the big boy in town.
And we
So,
like talking about
Right.
them.
Yeah. So
Are we sure we're not a con?
I didn't do this.
guilty.
That's right.
So, but the concept would so let's say that Gen Con did this, and they said, okay, our theme this year is I don't know, 8-bit gaming or whatever.
Oh, sure.
So they hire the guys that do the 8-bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Or
Elm
this-
Studios, yeah.
Yeah.
Elm
Yes,
Studios.
we'll say Big Crawl Pocket because it's a lot easier to think of.
Okay, so Big Call Pocket. So, and Big Crawl Pocket gets commissioned to do a board game based on the 8-bit theme for that year. So they have that